Alright everyone, hi, how's everyone doing? My name is Jessie. I'm one of the exercise specialists here that works at the weight management clinic, and I'm going to be leading group today. Everybody see me okay? Hope so. So today we're going to be covering the importance of strength training and how it is important as a part of your weight management program. So if you have any questions, if you don't mind waiting till the end to ask those questions, you can go ahead and type them in the comment box, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can. Also, for the people using computers, not cell phones, to view this, there is actually a handout that you're able to download at the bottom of the screen. This handout is just an overview of what we're going to be talking about. It also has some activities that you can do throughout the presentation, so if you'd like to fill that out while we're going along, you can definitely do that. So let's go ahead and get started. So the topic today is the importance of strength training. So first, let's define what strength training is. So strength training is a form of physical activity that is designed to improve muscular fitness by exercising a muscle or muscle group against external resistance. So there's two different ways that you can kind of train your muscles. You can either train strength of your muscle, or you can also train endurance of your muscle. So we'll go ahead and switch to the next screen. So muscular strength versus muscular endurance. So depending on the style of exercise that you're doing, you are either going to be training one of these. So let's go ahead and compare these two. So muscular strength, first starting out, is the ability of a muscle or muscle group to exert a maximal external force. So typically this style of strength training uses fast twitch fibers in your muscles. And these fibers are really good for generating short bouts of strength. However, they do fatigue much easier, much faster. So they're also called type 2 fibers. Traditionally, weightlifting is a way to build strength in your muscles. So more of a high weight, low repetition style. So using higher weight, maybe closer to like 10 pounds or 12 pounds, and using lower repetitions. So maybe around 8 to 10, 8 to 12, somewhere around in there. So typically when you come see one of the exercise specialists, this is the style of strength training that we're going to be working with you through your training sessions, things like that. So that's one way to build your strength, and then muscular endurance is another way you can target your muscle when strength training. So to define muscular endurance, that is the ability of a muscle or muscle group to repeatedly exert submaximal resistance. So with this, when you're doing this style, you're using more slow twitch fiber muscles in your muscles, or type 1. So this is going to be more low weight, high repetitions. So slow twitch fibers are more efficient at using oxygen to generate fuel for continuous muscle contraction over time. So examples of this, if you are, I know the YMCA has body pump classes, so typically you're doing at most like 20 to 30 repetitions in a minute. But you're using a lower amount of weight, so using maybe 3-pound or 5-pound weights during this. So this is a way to build endurance of the muscle, so using lower weight but higher repetitions. If you're doing circuit training, things like that, typically that's another way to kind of build the endurance. You're doing those high repetitions in those circuits, in those intervals. So how can strength training be accomplished? So there's many different ways. Things that you will come in contact with here at the Weight Management Center or even at gyms. You may also have exercise equipment at home. So traditional free weights resistance bands, medicine balls, kettlebells, body weight machines, and TRX. Or if you don't have any of that stuff, you don't have gym membership, you can even use your common household products. So milk jugs, you can fill them with water, fill them with sand, or also even soup cans are a good way to kind of get in your strength training if you don't have equipment at home. So how do you know if your strength training program is effective? So we're going to use the FIT principle. FIT principle can be applied to any component of fitness, whether it be cardio, flexibility, balance training, things like that. But today we're going to apply it to strength training. So if you're already in a strength training routine, maybe you can apply this to your own routine and see if it meets the requirements. But FIT stands for frequency, intensity, time, and type. So for frequency, at least 2 non-consecutive days to perform strength training a week. And by non-consecutive, we just mean giving yourself that rest day in between. So maybe trying a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, something where you have that rest day in between and you're able to let your muscles recover after working them through your strength training routine. So moving down, we have intensity. When you are strength training, you want to make sure you're feeling the burn when you're doing repetitions and your sets. You should feel the burn towards the last couple of your repetitions. So if you're planning to do 12 repetitions, you should be feeling the burn around 10, 11, and then you're able to do at least one more. So if you're not feeling the burn by that planned repetition, you should probably increase the weight a little bit. But we'll talk about increasing weight later in the presentation. But once you're able to do 2 or more reps than what you had planned, so if you had planned 12 repetitions and you're able to do 15 with the current weight that you're at, I would suggest doing that for 2 more sessions and then increase your weight after that. So increasing weight, typically I like to increase weight more at 3 pounds, but it also suggests 5 pounds. So anywhere from 3 to 5 pounds should be perfectly safe if you're able to do those 2 extra reps than planned over 2 sessions. So moving down to time, this one kind of varies. It just depends on how long it takes you to do each exercise, how long you're resting in between each exercise, things like that. So about 20 minutes should be how long it takes you to do your strength training routine. But we mainly just want you to focus on targeting all your major muscle groups. So you have starting upper body, shoulders, biceps, triceps, chest, back. Lower body, you have quads, hamstrings, calves, your glutes, and also your core area, so your abdominals and your lower back. So as long as you're targeting all those major muscle groups, I wouldn't worry too much about the time. At least it probably takes you about 15 minutes, and at most maybe 30 minutes, but 20 minutes is usually pretty average for hitting all your major muscle groups. So type, there's all different types of strength training you can do. Combination lifts is a good example of a time saver. When you are strength training, they're most time effective because you're working multiple muscle groups within one exercise. So these are going to be multiple joint exercises. So let's say you're going to do a squat with an overhead press. So you're going to be working lower body but also upper body because you're adding in that overhead press. So machines are usually just single joint movement, and then combination lifts again are going to be the multiple joint movements. You're moving 2 different muscle groups at the same time, so they can be a little bit more time effective if you're in a rush or anything like that. Maybe adding in some combo lifts. So another good one would maybe be like a lunge with the overhead press, squat with a bicep curl, things like that. And it's also a good idea to incorporate balance into your training routine. A good exercise for this one would be a balancing bicep curl, so standing on one leg, really distributing your weight within the foot that you're standing on, and then completing a bicep curl. So that's a good way to kind of throw off your equilibrium, so your body is challenged to keep your balance during the exercise. So it's a really good way to build some strength, and it also incorporates a balance aspect to your training program. All right. So this is one of your activities if you were able to download the PDF at the bottom of the screen. This is one of the activities that you can do to create your own strength training routine. So these are some really good examples for strength training. As you can see on the left, you have all the major muscle groups of the body, and then across the very top you have various equipment that you can use for these exercises. So the first step to creating your own routine, and on the PDF there's fill in the blanks, so you can write in the exercises that you choose. But the first step is going to be choosing one exercise from each major muscle group. So this is going to depend on what kind of equipment access you have. So if you don't have any equipment, definitely stick with the body weight exercises all the way to the right. But if you do have access to a gym, things like that, free weights and machine weights are two good columns that you can stay in as well. So the first step would be to choose the exercises for each major muscle group. So let's say I only have my own body weight to use as a resistance. I don't have any free weights at home, anything. So I'm going to choose the exercises under the body weight exercises for the equipment. So if you want to go ahead and fill out your sheet, most of these exercises are going to be what's called an isotonic exercise. So this is contracting your muscles through its full range of motion. So if you're doing a basic bicep curl, you're contracting your muscle through the full range of motion of your elbow. Using concentric and eccentric contractions. So eccentric is extending the muscle, and then concentric is shortening the muscle. So most of the exercises listed above are going to be those styles of exercises. But there are a few isometric exercises. So isometric exercises involves contracting various muscles against a non-moving object. So the examples above would be a plank. So under the body weight exercises, you have, for the abdominals, you have planks. Another good one would be a wall sit. So you're not contracting your muscle like you would in a regular bicep curl using those isotonic movements. It's more of a static exercise. You are still contracting the muscle, but you're staying in one place while you're doing it. There's no joint movement at all. So that style is going to build more endurance of the muscle, but it's still good for a strengthening aspect of strength training as well. So if you want to go ahead and fill out the activity with the machines or the free weights or the body weight that you're going to use, and then an exercise for each. You can definitely switch up the equipment that you're using. So maybe if you wanted, for your chest, you wanted to use free weights, you'd choose the supine bench press, and then maybe for your back you wanted to do a body weight exercise, you could do pull-ups. So really just choosing the exercises that you feel are the most safest thing that you can be doing. So if you want to go ahead and fill out that PDF, that activity area, you definitely can. If you did do that, so all that's left is to just get to work. So completing 2 to 3 sets of 12 to 15 repetitions for each of the exercises that you chose. All right. So if you are currently in a strength training routine, or if you just created one through that little activity that we just did, here are some goals to focus on when you are starting a strength training program, or if you are already in one. So the first one is learning the fundamental exercise correctly. So it's easier to learn the movement without adding weight to make sure you have good form before you add the weight. So that's a good way to kind of learn the exercises correctly to decrease your chances of injury. But if you want to start with lighter weight to learn the exercise, to get comfortable with it before increasing your weight, that's a good idea as well. So prevent injury during this particularly vulnerable time. So definitely don't try to lift heavy weight. Definitely don't try to do exercises that you aren't comfortable with. If you have bad knees, for example, don't try doing jumping jacks, anything like that. That's really going to make your knees vulnerable during that exercise. And definitely I'd suggest working with your training sessions that you have here at the clinic, working one-on-one with one of the exercise specialists here to kind of work with us, get your form down, show us the exercise routine that you're doing, and making sure that you are doing correct form. We can correct you and let you know what you're doing wrong so you do not injure yourself or anything outside of the clinic when you're doing this stuff on your own. So typically weight machines, when you are first starting strength training, if you have access to a gym, weight machines are typically a good place for you to start. When you're using a weight machine, if you think about it, let's say like a chest press, you're pressing that weight away from you and then pulling it back. So that's a good way to prevent injury because machines only have one track. You're not able to go out of your range of motion at all, and they're usually really good at helping you not injure yourself because they only have that one track that you can use. So next we're going to talk about the benefits to a regular strength training routine. So there are many different benefits, but we're just going to go over a few of them. So the first one is maintaining and increasing your muscle mass. I'm sure you've probably heard an exercise specialist definitely talk about this, but that is one thing that we want you to do when you are losing your weight here at the clinic. We want you to keep that muscle mass as much as you can. Muscle mass has really great benefits. It reduces fat weight, which also decreases the risk of heart disease. So a high amount of muscle mass in your body also maintains and even increases your resting metabolic rate, which is how many calories you burn at rest in a day. So a higher amount of calories that you're burning in a day, and then you're eating lower amount of calories, that means there's going to be a deficit. So that means there's going to be an increase in your weight loss. So it's really good to have that high amount of muscle mass in your body. Regular strength training also helps prevent against sarcopenia. And by definition, sarcopenia means loss of muscle tissue as a natural part of the aging process. So as we get older, it's just a natural part of the aging process. We're going to lose muscle tissue. So having that increased muscle and regular strength training is going to help to prevent against that. So there's another few of them below. So enhancing insulin sensitivity and glucose utilization is another benefit. Reducing resting systolic and diastolic blood pressure. So you may see a drop in your blood pressure as you continue to do your strength training routine. So benefits continued. It improves blood lipid profile, so improves your cholesterol if you're continuous and consistent with a strength training routine. It also increases bone density. This is a big one for us women out there. Women are predisposed to osteoporosis, so Osteoporosis is when your bones become fragile from weight loss, or from loss of tissue, I'm sorry. So having a higher amount of muscle mass in your body is going to help to prevent against that osteoporosis. It's going to help to prevent any breakage of your bones. It's going to help protect them. And so it's really good for us women out there to do some strength training. It also decreases lower back discomfort, and there's a few more going down. Enhances self-confidence and relieves depression. Those are some good benefits to a regular strength training routine. So we'll go ahead and move on. So if you're already in a strength training routine and you feel like it's getting boring, or if you feel like you're not getting as challenged as you were during the beginning of your routine, during beginning of strength training, it's going to be probably time to progress your strength training routine. So now we're going to talk about how to progress that strength training routine. So by definition, progression means the act of moving forward or advancing toward a specific goal over time until a target goal has been achieved. So one key principle to use in progressing your strength training routine is the overload principle. So that definition is, in order to make progress, your muscles need to be continuously challenged with a new training stimulus, or they cease to adapt. So if you are continuing for months and months and months to use the weight, you're doing the same exercises, your muscles are eventually going to adapt to this. They're going to become used to this, and it's not going to be beneficial at all to continue with that. So there's going to be a need to progress that routine. So one thing you want to try to avoid with strength training is overtraining. So overtraining is a constant, intense training that does not provide adequate time for recovery. So this is constantly strength training each day of the week. That's a good example. Not having those rest days in between, just to kind of prevent against that overtraining. You want your muscles to kind of recover and restore as a part of your strength training routine, so you'll be able to perform your best when you are strength training. So how do I know if I'm overtraining? So mainly it's physical signs, so decreased performance, loss of coordination, elevated morning heart rate, increased incidence of musculoskeletal injuries, so maybe like fractures, things like that. And then disturbed sleep patterns is another physical sign that means that you're probably overtraining. So ways to prevent overtraining. So it's not recommended to dramatically increase your volume that you're using, or in other words, your weight that you're using. So if you're just starting out strength training and you start with 5 pounds and then the next day you go and you bump it up to 10 pounds, it's usually not recommended to do that, just to kind of prevent your injury and prevent overtraining. So definitely work with a certain weight for a few weeks and then think about increasing that weight. Also give yourself rest breaks during your strength training routine, so doing a set, taking your rest, doing another set, taking your rest. These don't have to be long rests. You still want your muscles to be activated, to be warm. So maybe 30 seconds to a minute rest between each set, just to give yourself time to kind of recoup so you can perform at your best when you are going back for that second or third set. Consistent flexibility training. Flexibility is really important when you are doing strength training. You want to keep your muscles flexible. You want to be able to stretch them once you're doing strength training, you get them warmed up. That's a good time to stretch afterwards, to kind of prevent any tearing of the muscles, things like that. So increase your rest periods like we were just talking about above. So if you're taking 30-second rest periods right now and you don't feel like that's enough, you feel like your second or third set is kind of really lagging, maybe increasing that rest period between your sets. And then finally, just get the appropriate amount of sleep each night. Average of good sleep is usually 7 to 8 hours a night. So if you're getting less than that, you're probably not going to perform at your best when you are doing strength training. So try to get at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep at night. Alright, so we'll talk about methods to progressing your strength training routine. So here are 4 methods that we have. So the first 2 are probably the most safest ways to progress your strength training routine. So the first one's going to be progress the weight, which we've already kind of mentioned before. And then the second one's going to be decreasing your rest between your sets, advance your sets, which means if you're doing 2 sets right now, maybe advancing to 3 sets, and then up your repetitions. So if you're doing 12 repetitions, maybe increasing to 15 repetitions. So we're really just going to focus on the first 2 methods, so progressing the weight and then decreasing your rest between sets. So first we'll focus on progressing the weight that you're lifting. So a little quote for you all. It is recommended that a 2 to 10% increase in the load be applied when the individual can comfortably perform the current workload for 1 or 2 repetitions over the desired number on 2 consecutive training sessions. So just like we were talking before, if you had planned to do 12 repetitions and you're able to do 1 or 2 more, so maybe 13 or 14 repetitions over 2 consecutive training sessions, then that will be time for you to increase your weight. Increasing weight maybe by 3 pounds or 5 pounds. 5 pounds is probably pushing it. I'd probably stick more towards increasing by 3s. So start by conquering the full range of motion repetition with a lightweight first and then increase. We'd already talked about that earlier, but maybe starting with a lower weight so you know that you are doing the exercise correctly and you're not breaking form, and then move your way up from there. This decreases your chance of injury and increases the results of your strength training. Alright, so to decrease your rest between sets is another method to progress your strength training routine. So first start by decreasing your rest periods between your sets. So if you're taking a minute rest right now, maybe try resting for 45 seconds instead of the 60 seconds. And what this is going to do is going to increase the difficulty of the exercise, and it also challenges your body to recover faster. So make sure to keep the weight and rep set scheme the same. So if you're using 5-pound weights and doing 3 sets of 15, make sure you're keeping that the same if you're going to decrease your rest periods. And definitely make sure not to, going back to the methods, I'll switch it back. Definitely try not to progress all of these methods. So try not to do multiple methods at one time. Choose one and work with it, and then if that one's still not progressing your routine, maybe choosing a different one. Definitely do not suggest doing multiples of these methods at the same time. Alright, and last, if you only have 10 minutes in your day and you haven't gotten your strength training in, here's a simple strength training exercise for busy days. So first on the left you have a push-up, and this is going to work your upper body. This right here is actually a modified push-up, so you're on your knees. It's still going to be pretty difficult. But if you feel comfortable enough to lift those knees off the ground, go into a regular push-up form, that is perfectly okay. Or if you'd like to do a push-up against the wall, that is perfectly okay too. So wherever you are at right now, either way you want to do it. So these 3 exercises are just something to work your upper body, lower body, and core. Takes 10 minutes, and it's for busier days. So moving on to the middle exercise, you have the squat, which is for your lower body. So this is going to be working your glutes, your hamstrings, a little bit of your calves, also mainly your quads, but this is a good one for your lower body. So another way to do this one is putting a chair behind you. So you're going to be acting like you're going to be sitting down in the chair, go about halfway down, and then come right back up. So maybe trying that if you don't feel comfortable doing it like this lady is doing it in the picture. Another good one would be a wall sit. So that's where you're putting your back up against the wall, and then you're going to scoot your way down until your knees are about at a 90-degree angle. And you're going to hold that position as long as you can. So generally this is going to work the same muscles as what the squat is, so that could be another modification for you. And then moving on to the right, you have the plank, and this is going to work mainly your core, but plank is really good for a total body workout. Obviously, you can see in the picture the lady is holding herself up with her arms, so that's a good static isometric exercise for your arms. And also your lower body, you're having to keep your balance using your legs, so it's also a really good exercise for your lower body as well, but it's mainly going to target your core area. So modifications for this is you look at the push-up over to the left. That's a good modification for this exercise, just lowering your knees down to the floor. Another modification would be doing this plank in a chair. So if you were to imagine a chair underneath this lady's arms, and then her feet coming down to the ground, so her body is still at an angle. So that's a good modification as well if you don't feel comfortable going all the way to the floor. You can also do a plank on maybe a high countertop. So if you have a countertop at home that's a little bit higher than normal but not too high, you still want to make sure you're at an angle when you're doing this exercise. So if you don't feel comfortable doing it on the floor, definitely suggest trying it maybe with a chair or even on a higher countertop in your house. The lowest modification would be on the wall. You're not going to get that much of a core workout with that, but it's still a good place to start for people who are just now starting to do planks and do not feel comfortable going down to a chair or even down to the floor. And finally, just completing 2 to 3 sets of 15 repetitions of each of these exercises. So it should only take you about 10 minutes, so if you're having a busier day, you don't have time to make it to the gym, this is a good workout to kind of keep in mind to fit in on those busier days. Alright, so any questions? I think there was a question, is there a modification for the plank? I just answered that, so it'll be either on the chair or if you want to drop your knees down to the floor holding the same position. Those are really good modifications for the plank. So this will be time for any questions that you may have about any of the information that was presented. So the next question we got is, if we can't do a push-up, is the wall push-up a good starting place? Yes, I completely 100% agree with that. So push-up on the floor, like this lady's doing in the picture, is a modified version, but the wall push-up is just going to work the same amount of muscle. Wall push-ups are really good starting point for everyone, really, just to get good form before you lower yourself down to the floor to where you're pushing more of your body weight. So what I would suggest when doing a wall push-up is having your hands about a little bit wider than your shoulders, pressed up against the wall, and coming up onto those tiptoes. And so that should provide enough angle for you to do a regular push-up. So you're just going to bring yourself a little bit closer to the wall, and then you're going to press yourself away. So doing that 15 repetitions and then 2 to 3 sets depending on how challenged you feel. So the next question we have, the question reads, for keeping this up long term, if not going to the gym, do you change the variety of the resistance exercises? I use resistance bands at home now. So yes, resistance bands are going to eventually become simple for you. So another option would be getting higher resistance on your resistance bands. If you don't have the money to do that, maybe creating more resistance, so grabbing a little bit further down on the band to create a little bit more resistance to keep it a little bit challenging. But you can also add in things like body weight exercises. So the 3 above are really good exercises for using your own body weight as resistance. So that may be a little bit more challenging than using resistance bands, things like that. So maybe trying to add in some body weight exercises right now. But long term, it's always good to just have variety in general. So if you are doing resistance bands, doing the same exercises, maybe trying new exercises with the resistance bands, or even adding in those body weight exercises for a few weeks to a few months, and then maybe going back to using the resistance bands. You probably find that using the bands are going to be a lot easier than what they were before. So just kind of constantly changing up the resistance that you're doing and things like that. Eventually you could probably add in some more, let's see, like plyometric exercises, so adding some jumps in. So if you're doing a squat, maybe adding in a jump with the squat, so a jump squat, as a little extra challenge, so you're having to bear more of your weight initially in that squat. So that's a good way to kind of change up the variety of your resistance exercises. Are there any more questions? So I'll definitely encourage you to reach out to any of the exercise specialists that works here, and definitely send us your questions if you do have questions, so we can address them. If you want to wait until one of your follow-up visits, that's a good place to kind of address your questions about exercise in general, and really utilize your training sessions here with us, so we can kind of give you exercises, help you come up with ideas, things like that to do on your own for strength training, things like that. And that's a good way to kind of keep your variety different as well in your strength training routine. So we can show you exercises that you can do and work with you to make sure you have the good form, things like that, make sure you're using the right weight. So definitely I would encourage you to reach out during your visits, schedule some training sessions, things like that, just to kind of always keep in touch with us and let us know what you're doing for your strength training routine. So that completes, if there's no other questions, that completes the Essentials group, there's actually a survey at the end, so you're able to get your PERCA points. There's a survey at the very end that you're going to be redirected to, that you can tell us your name and all your information, so we're able to give you your PERCA points. And make sure you stay on here so you can be redirected to that survey to get your PERCA points. So thank you for joining in, and I'll see you next time.